crisis that has driven the 40 institutions into a debt burden amounting to 60 billion shillings. And as Chemutai Goin now reports, the meeting will also discuss recommendations by the Presidential Education Working Group, including increasing fees payable by government-sponsored students up to 3 times.
Financial crisis faced by public universities, which threatens to paralyze operations in the 40 institutions, has jolted education sector players into action. The depth of the crisis, put bare by the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform, which in its findings showed that the institutions are broke. The University Fund, the body tasked with ensuring the 40 public universities are funded, admitting that the institutions are cash-strapped and require immediate bailout.
We want to review the current funding framework, not only to review the differentiated unit costs. We want to look at, because currently we don't have a formula for capital infrastructure projects. How do you give money for these infrastructure projects? Performance-based funding for universities. How many graduates graduate? How employable are they? Do you take into consideration national priority programs? The
Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms notes that the university's debt situation was worrying since as at June last year, they owed various statutory bodies, SACCOs, suppliers, contractors, among others, over 56 billion shillings, and that 6 months later, the figure had grown further.
Now we are talking about 60.1. That is just 6 months after June. So this problem is growing. The only challenge is that we have not been bold enough to make the necessary decisions.
The University Fund avers the institution's tribulations arise from the fact that despite a gradual increase in the number of students joining the institutions, the funds required to keep the wheels running have not been matched, hampering service delivery.
The policy of government has been 100% transition, and yet that does not follow with the current available funding. That is the first challenge that we have been facing with the universities.
Owing to the increased intake, which has been growing every year, the institution's funding deficit now stands at 53 billion shillings.
For 34 years, fees has not increased. Do you have the same product? That is a question that we must ask ourselves as a country. The fees currently is lower than any national school that we have in this country, because national school students pay 53,000 per term. You are talking of fees of 16,000 per year for a university student.
What is already eliciting sharp reactions is the proposal by the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform to increase fees for government-sponsored students from the current 16,000 shillings to between 48 and 52,000 shillings.
Even though fees should be increased, those funds should be able to be provided by HELB as a loan to the student to pay the extra fees that may be increased. So as a consideration, government will be able to consider how much would the loan be increased to take care of tuition fees and also upkeep for the students. Otherwise, if we increase fees without HELB loan, then it becomes a challenge to the very poor students who are in this country.
Other proposals that have been floated include challenging universities to formulate resource mobilization strategies, commercialized research, utilization of idle assets including land and properties that can generate more funds. Also being considered is the reduction in the number of satellite colleges to minimize expenditure. Chemutai Goin, Citizen TV.